Hi, and welcome once again to Ivy English. I'm Karen.
And I'm Chris Gorski.
Today is June 22nd. Today we're going to hear part one of a two-part article about a very, very popular instrument, which I bet you actually like a lot.
Yeah, I am a big fan of the guitar, both its history and its benefits.
And that's our title.
I am a very amateur guitar player. I have always been interested in music. As we discussed previously, it's really important to listen to certain music to set my mood for the day. And walking into the studio, I'm always playing one more important song to kind of set my mood. And if I don't have it right, it kind of throws my balance off. And that music almost always is guitar-driven, but I tend to like a lot of music. But going into the studio, I'm listening to some rock and roll.
I also started playing the guitar around 7th grade.
Really?
And the way it happened was kind of roundabout. We had this magazine that was passed out in class, and on one page, it was a Yamaha Win Your Own Band contest.
Huh.
And I looked at that picture, and I looked, and I looked, and I looked at that picture, and I thought, I really want to enter this contest. And this picture just had such an attraction for me. I was looking at it every day, and I thought, what's going on here? Like, you normally don't win when you enter a contest.
Right.
So what good is it going to do? So I thought about it and thought about it till I realized I want a guitar. That's why I like that thing so much, that picture and that contest idea.
What kind of guitar? Did you want an acoustic that's a wooden guitar or
Absolutely,
electric?
Acoustic. Yes. So I realized I don't have to join the contest. I realized I probably would not win. But if what I wanted was the guitar, I could just buy a guitar. I mean, I wasn't wealthy. I was earning some of my own money or getting an allowance. But maybe my father would help out. So I started looking in the want ads in the newspaper. And I looked and looked and looked and found a guitar available, a secondhand one, for $25.
Oh.
So my father drove me over there, and I got my first guitar.
What color?
It was actually brown, shaded brown.
You always remember that. You always remember that.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's right. So that's how it was a steel string guitar. That's how I started playing the guitar. It was this picture of a Yamaha Win Your Own Band contest.
What was the song you wanted to play? Well, it's like, what's the first song? Like, I'm going to play this song.
It wasn't actually in a particular song that I had in mind because I'd learned piano before. So I just kind of was attracted by the idea of learning a new musical instrument. And the first song I learned was from a little 45 record that came with the guitar, which was Down in the Valley. 2 chords.
You just always remember these things. I don't know what it is. I could tell you a very similar story, and but we'll have time for all that stuff later.
The second one was Red River Valley. All valleys. Okay, so our title, The Guitar, History and the Benefits. Watch a video of a band online or head to a live gig, and you'll probably see at least one person playing the guitar. Classified as a chordophone, the guitar produces sound from the vibration of strings that are stretched between 2 fixed points. Nowadays, it is the most popular instrument to learn, probably owing to the availability of inexpensive guitars and the fact that the instrument is very portable.
Stringed instruments have been developed and played by numerous cultures throughout history. Some people trace the origins of the guitar back to ancient harps and lutes. But the invention of the first instrument that resembles the modern guitar isn't quite as old. The first instruments that were known as guitars date back to medieval Spain. By 1200, 2 common versions could be found in the region. One was the Latin guitar, which had a single sound hole and a narrow neck. The other was the Moorish guitar. It featured a rounded back, a wide fingerboard, and several sound holes. How these initial versions developed into the modern guitar remains unclear. But by 1850, Spanish guitar makers were devising something akin to the modern acoustic guitar.
The most significant development for many of today's guitarists would likely be the emergence of the electric guitar. This guitar was first patented in 1937. Electric guitars are not equipped with the resonant chamber of classical guitars. Instead, the sound is projected using an electronic pickup and an amplifier, which helps generate abundant musical qualities. This guitar has therefore been applied to a wide range of musical genres and is still the primary instrument in styles such as jazz, punk, rock, and pop. In fact, you'd probably have a hard time finding a song in your playlist that doesn't feature either the electric or acoustic guitar. Very true. Unless you listen to only classical music.
I was thinking, well, there's a lot of classical guitar, too. I was thinking EDM, electric dance music, you could get away without
electronic.
You'd have synthesized guitar strings, but a lot of times you could pass by it. But you're jumping off the mainstream there.
That's right. So you can basically hear guitar music everywhere. And one thing I want to mention is that so many musical instruments that spread all over the world, including China, is actually Persia, Old Persia.
Yeah.
So many of these instruments, they originated in Persia. Tar means string.
That's right. The word itself looks very Middle Eastern. If it doesn't strike me in any way as looking as originating from the English language. Those simple verbs that you often so famously would hear about, this is not resembling that. It looks foreign to my eyes.
That's right. And in Persia or in Iran now, they still have an instrument called the tar, simply the tar. In Xinjiang, they have an instrument called the dutar, and everybody household has one. Du means two, tar means string. It's a two-stringed instrument, something like a guitar with a long neck. So it has spread everywhere. It originated certainly in Persia. Let's go back to the beginning. So we already talked about history and benefits, and that sounds sort of like a plant rather than a musical instrument, but actually music can be very therapeutic, so I guess we shouldn't be too surprised.
Yeah, just as I started, I said that music sets my mood, and that both means up and down. Depending on what I'm doing, that music will alter how I'm feeling. It's a very ready kind of basis for changing how I feel.
And that is written down in history, going back thousands and thousands of years. Confucius said it about how you can regulate your mood with music.
Yeah.
Our first sentence, watch a video of a band online or head to a live gig, and you'll probably see at least one person playing the guitar. Gig is a really fun word to know. It just means that you have been hired to perform at a certain place at a certain time. You often don't get a lot of money unless you're extremely famous. But although we have gigabyte and gigabyte and no one is sure which is better, this one is definitely gig.
This is absolutely gig. And another note about gigs is when we call it a gig, it generally means not a repeat performance. We're hiring you for this one time, and if you do a good job, we'll hire you for another gig. It is a one-off type of job.
And we often use it just for part-time work of any kind.
That's right. We're calling it the gig economy. So food delivery drivers are often part of the gig economy.
And there's a lot of those around.
There's a lot of those around.
Okay, so wherever you go to listen to music or through whatever medium, you're probably going to hear the guitar. Classified as a chordophone, the guitar produces sound from the vibration of strings that are stretched between two fixed points. So you've got the string attached at the top and at the bottom, and it's very taut. T-A-U-T. Taut, that means it's very tight. And then when you strum it, it vibrates very quickly at a certain pitch, and that's what creates the music. You've also got a sound box that makes it louder so you can hear it better.
And of course, guitar strings today are made of steel or nylon, but in the past, we didn't have nylon. That was a man-made invention. So animal intestines were frequently used. Cat guts were popular, which kind of bugs me.
Yeah, definitely for violins, too. Nowadays, it is the most popular instrument to learn, probably owing to the availability of inexpensive guitars and the fact that the instrument is very portable. Now, those are two very good reasons. It is not that hard to learn basic guitar if you want to get really, really good. Like with anything, it will take a lot of practice, and you probably need a pretty good teacher. You'll have to work with some very good materials and things, but it is very easy to get started on.
This reminds me of your Tetris story that you had with Wesley. It's one of those things that's easy to learn and hard to master. You could keep going forever to improve your skill.
So many things are like that. Here's paragraph 2.
Stringed instruments have been developed and played by numerous cultures throughout history.
As we've just mentioned, a lot of them originated, as mentioned, in Persia.
Don't mess up that pronunciation. Cultures.
Not cultures.
Next, some people trace the origins of the guitar back to ancient harps and lutes. But the invention of the first instrument that resembles the modern guitar isn't quite as old.
Stringed instruments themselves are extremely old. You will find them in very ancient cultures, in archaeological diggings of many cultures. But now we're just talking about an instrument that largely resembles the modern guitar.
When we trace the origins of something, we are following the history back in time as far as we can go, be it that we find the correct answer or records just stop appearing.
Okay, let's keep going.
Here we go. The first instruments that were known as guitars date back to medieval Spain.
Now, that gives you a very strong clue that that instrument probably came in from the Arab countries, from the Middle East. The instrument that came in is called the oud. O-U-D, oud, the oud. And the word for the in Arabic is al. So if you say al-oud, kind of quickly it becomes alut. And so they heard lute, and so it was called lute in the European languages.
Now, medieval is just two Latin words that mean the Middle Ages. If you're confused about when this is, that's after like the Han Dynasty to about like the early Ming Dynasty. It's from about 400 AD to about 1600. That's what we consider the Middle Ages. It used to be called the Dark Ages, and I kind of personally still feel that way. I'm planting my flag. I would never go there if I could time travel.
Yeah, I wouldn't either, although someone has written a book saying that it wasn't so dark in some ways. There was a lot of scholarship then, but we better not go there. Yeah. I can see it in your face. I mean, I would definitely not want to go back then either, but I will add another thing about the oud. I actually love world music, and I love oud music. When you hear it, you know immediately this is probably from an Arab country somewhere in the Middle East. They have a different scale that uses quarter tones.
Right.
Quarter tones, they sound very exotic. And then if you don't know Arabic or if you're not into that culture, it may put you off, but I personally love it. There's a lot of beautiful music on it.
Yeah, I do agree with that.
Popular all over the Middle East.
And that is one of the really benefits of our era is that with a bunch of streaming apps and YouTube, you can explore world music far easier than you ever could in the past. It is so accessible today, whereas you might have to plunk down $25 American to get one CD from one group that you might not even like.
That's the way life was back then, yes.
That's the true Dark Ages.
I would buy them when I traveled.
Yeah. Right? Get one on the cheap there, eh?
Well, just to get any at all, like you're saying. But one thing that's kind of interesting is you know that young people like to gather around shops like convenience stores, and the owners of the stores don't like this. They would actually like to get rid of those young people. They tried different ways of getting rid of them, like playing rock music really loud, and they didn't care. They thought it was fine.
It's cool.
And they found what worked better was to play unfamiliar music, like the oud or like the Indian sitar.
Right.
They found if they played that, the young people actually would disperse quite quickly.
That's funny. That's
and I love that
psychology.
Music. Yeah.
You're like sitting there jamming away.
Exactly. Being weird, and I'm fine with that.
Let's continue here. By 1200, two common versions could be found in the region.
And we're going to find out what they are in the next sentence.
One was the Latin guitar, which had a single sound hole and a narrow neck.
And that is very close to what we play now.
The other was the Moorish guitar.
And that was the oud that we were just talking about, O-U-T, oud.
The Moorish people were from North Africa, and this guitar, it featured a rounded back, a wide fingerboard, and several sound holes.
And it did not have frets. Those are those metal or other wooden strips across the neck of the guitar or the instrument that will actually fix the pitches that you play. You press down here, you will get a certain pitch. You cannot actually change it half or quarter tone. So that's a big difference between the Middle Eastern oud and the European lute.
The best guitar I had ever heard, my favorite guitar I had ever heard, was owned by my RA, my resident advisor in my college dorm. He got his first paycheck for kind of babysitting us at college, and he bought like the $600 guitar.
Oh my gosh,
and
electric guitar.
It was a mix between a Spanish guitar and a Moorish guitar.
You could plug it in.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it had a nice rounded back, several sound holes. It had frets. It had the softest, best sounds, but it still had steel strings. I honestly, I wish I would have stole it from him. I love that guitar.
I'm glad you didn't, because otherwise you wouldn't be here to record with me.
Oh, we used to play that guitar all the time. Neither of us were really good, but we loved the sound it made. It just elevated your mediocre playing to just barely above tolerable. I love that guitar.
It pays to get a good instrument.
It really
does.
That's
true. Okay.
Let's continue to our next sentence. How these initial versions developed into the modern guitar remains unclear. But by 1850, Spanish guitar makers were devising something akin to the modern acoustic guitar.
it's not a big stretch. If you've seen an oud, then you see the lute, then you see the guitar. It's a fairly natural-looking development, if you ask me.
Acoustic is the Greek word for hear, to hear.
That's right. And acoustics is the study of sounds. So there are a lot of rooms where it really echoes really loud, and it's hard to have a conversation because everybody's voices are echoing through the room. There's a place that I'm not going back to for that reason, because they actually should have some soft material on the walls, and that will absorb some of the sound so you can have a conversation. The acoustics were really poor in that one place.
So we're about to go to our next paragraph where we discuss modern guitars, and I just want to segue with a short story here. So in 2011, David Brown played his guitar for 114 hours, 6 minutes and 30 seconds at the Temple Bar Pub in Dublin, Ireland. He played a total of 1,372 songs, capturing the Guinness World Record for nonstop playing. And I love this. So his final song that you can watch on YouTube, although the footage is terrible, it's the iconic With or Without You by the legendary Irish rock band U2.
Oh.
His crowd watches him, counts down with him while he plays, and they just go wild singing the chorus. It is just, I'm getting tingles just talking about it. It was so magical. You'd think after all this time he'd be exhausted, but this guy is just a one-man army. It's so jubilant and beautiful. They're very short clips, but very well worth your time, and he really deserves the views.
I hope he recovered okay from that, because losing sleep is really bad for you. But it sounds great. I'll have to look that one up on YouTube. The most significant development for many of today's guitarists would likely be the emergence of the electric guitar. Now, I have never been a huge fan of pop music or rock. I mean, some of it's okay. I don't dislike it a lot, but it's just not what I usually seek out. But for me, that was not a really great innovation because I love the acoustic guitar so much. It's got such a warm, intimate sound.
The acoustic guitar would be my preferred instrument, but I am very much give me more music of anything. Give me anything. And of course, that means the electric guitar. I'll have to politely disagree here.
Okay, that's fine. This guitar was first patented in 1937, and that is very recent. Electric guitars are not equipped with the resonant chamber of classical guitars. Instead, the sound is projected using an electronic pickup and an amplifier, which helps generate abundant musical qualities. This is kind of a complex sentence, but the first time that I tried out an electric guitar without it being plugged in, I was just shocked. I go, this thing doesn't make any sound.
It's so quiet. How can anybody hear this?
I know, and the thing is that you have to wear earplugs if you actually listen to it being played. That was my first shock, and I thought, you know, that softness and intimacy is not there because you have nothing much unless you have electricity.
I suppose the right amplifier you use, too, because there is a lot of very lovely jazz guitar, which is oftentimes electrified, and it's very smooth as butter.
That's true, but it doesn't have a resonant chamber. That means that the guitar body is solid. It is not hollowed out so that it can vibrate in resonance with the music.
And, of course, you can get a pickup. That's the little tool that makes vibrations turn into electricity, and you could pop them into an acoustic guitar.
As well, that's right. And when it says, which helps generate abundant musical qualities, that means once you have that pickup and you've connected it to electricity and a speaker, then you can get all kinds of effects with an electric guitar, including a lot of distortion, like things that are...
You step on your pedal and change the sound.
And it's like you're stepping on somebody's ear. Okay. This guitar has therefore been applied to a wide range of musical genres and is still the primary instrument in styles such as jazz, punk, rock, and pop. Now, I'm not putting down any of these, to each his own, and I think quality is what matters more than genre. If you have good quality in any genre, I think all kinds of music can be enjoyed. And the other thing is the word genre. That's from French. Yeah. We have almost 0 words in English that start with a je sound except for foreign words, and the most common one is genre. Okay, so jazz, punk, rock, and pop. Be fun to talk about them if we had more time. In fact, you'd probably have a hard time finding a song in your playlist that doesn't feature either the electric or acoustic guitar.
I have to know then, because you've expressed some opinions here. Who are people you consider to be great guitarists? Be it whether a person you admire musically or not? Is there maybe perhaps more interestingly, who's a person that maybe musically you don't appreciate, but you still really like the musical style? Can you name a person like that?
It's hard for me to name actual musicians because for me, it's not so much the person or the genre or the instrument. I just like music that's interesting.
Right.
If it's sort of just like a copy of things I've heard 1,000 times before since I was 3, I'm just probably not going to be interested. Anybody who can innovate in an interesting way, that will probably attract me.
All right. I suppose that wasn't what I was looking for, but
Sorry.
we'll take it. Okay, well, I guess
you can
that's
give your answer.
Yeah, let's see. If you're putting the pressure on me, I think Eric Clapton is wildly overrated.
Though he's good.
I don't know, man.
Not a great person, but
that plays into part of it. I do think Paul McCartney gets
also
less
amazing.
credit than he really should when compared to John Lennon. I think Paul McCartney is a true master.
Yep.
Chuck Berry has to be one of them, of course, in terms of making like Boogie Woogie. And then getting to a modern era, I'll say Billy Corgan. And I know Billy Corgan, one of the guitarist, founder of Smashing Pumpkins, the great 90s rock band. Probably people wouldn't put him up there with a guitar god, but I dare you to find someone in a modern era that's playing as technically sound as he was at his peak in like 93. And
I will not take that dare. Go ahead. Go ahead and express
and
your
I'll
opinions.
also say the Leo brothers from Stone Temple Pilots.
Very
if you're
good.
familiar with guitar rock of the 90s, those are very big, very well-known names to you.
Some good ideas of things to add to your playlist.
Okay, so earlier we asked you about where you got started with music, and you said you began with piano and then you were transfixed by the guitar.
Yes.
And then, so I need to ask quickly, did you master the guitar?
Who masters anything?
Okay.
I got to the point where I could perform in public.
Okay.
Not hugely well, but good enough for public performance.
I would rank myself as a guitarist like among the most average of 3 chords and a chorus kind of pop punk singers. And I am no singer by any means, although I thoroughly enjoy it, as any of my students in the classroom can attest to. I will sing my brains out in the classroom.
Actually, I wrote songs.
Really?
Yes. When I was in high school, after I learned the guitar, I started writing songs because, you're going through puberty and going into adulthood, and life is really turbulent, and there's just a lot of turmoil in life, stuff that really doesn't matter, but at the time it seems like the end of the world to you. Writing a song is really good for that because you take those feelings and you put them in a song and you make something that sort of sounds good, and then you feel a lot better. So it was actually my therapy at the time.
That's interesting. I was not a very good songwriter. I tried it, and I came out as the worst version of Van Morrison. Just way too many words, way too much blue-eyed soul, and 0 musical qualities.
Sounds interesting, though.
So I got my guitar when I was like a teenager. We didn't have money growing up. I just grew up poor. And so my mom was a single mom with 4 kids. There's no money for musical lessons. So I had a guitar. I got a job at McDonald's and I bought a book of chords, and I just kind of looked at like I would go to music stores and look at the sheets and kind of pay attention to what were the common chords. D, G, E minor, A minor, F, whatever.
CFG.
Right. And just learned all the basics and wrote them down on a piece of paper, learned those chords, and then just started playing. And even today, I will just jam along with songs. I am not a creative person to make my own music, but I will tell you, I wouldn't need to make my own music because nothing pleases me more than playing along and singing my own favorite songs by other musicians. It drives me to immense heights of pleasure. I love it.
Which I think reinforces my theory that it is really good therapy for just about anybody.
I agree.
So you might want to give it some thought. Do you want to take up the guitar? It's certainly not expensive, easy to do in Taiwan, and you might find it's great therapy and great fun. That's it for today. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.